So say you give yourself the mission of nurturing your friends, your family, the people you love in general. What are efficient ways to go about doing such a tremendous task? I think the first step is obviously to begin nurturing yourself. Arguably the hardest thing, because it's very easy to say no and very easy to stagnate in your own life. I would suggest, if you're trying to get out of that, read a book or two. Read a self-help book or two. Watch some YouTube videos. Subscribe to some people that are motivational, inspirational. These people will give you methods, tried and true methods to actually changing your life and thinking about things. Obviously, you can subscribe to my channel. First step is nurturing yourself, because if you cannot do that, you will not be able to nurture anyone else. I'm sorry to say, or at least you won't be able to nurture to the level that you probably can, and thus you should. The second step after you start taking care of that is to realize that each personality has its own way in which it needs to be nurtured. That just comes down to understanding people's archetypes, understanding society in general, understanding what people are going through, their motivations. This again can come from books in general, but it comes down to socializing. You have to socialize. You have to go out and put yourself out there. You have to be willing to spend an extra couple seconds, and even in situations that you think it's not particularly efficient, you should be willing to spend some time with these people just to observe their motivations and who they are. It'll help a lot. Now, once you get to the stage that you know which type of archetype your friend or family is, then comes down the most difficult thing, besides obviously taking care of yourself. Then you have to determine whether or not they're actually worth spending time on, right? There's this old saying that there's an old what are they called? Allegory. There's an old allegory of the scorpion and the frog. The frog says to the scorpion, "Hey," well, the frog's not trying to talk to the scorpion. The scorpion says to the frog, "Hey, I won't bite you, but we need to get across this river. Just put me on your back. I swear I'll protect you." The scorpion then gets on the frog's back, the frog being a foolish, gullible soul. And halfway through their swim, the scorpion stings the frog, and both of them sink. I tell you this allegory to tell you that there are some archetypes of people that you may determine are not worth helping. And just because maybe your own mental health, because they're particularly volatile, maybe they're emotionally abusive, this type of thing. Part of socializing with enough people is going to be understanding which type of people you want to spend your time with. If you don't know the variety of different archetypes available and their pros and cons, you're going to have a hard time knowing who's actually worth your time. Which at the end of the day, if you're trying to nurture people, and the first step is nurturing yourself, you need to really think about, hey, why? Why am I even trying to let this person into my life in general? So, okay, you start thinking about yourself, you start thinking about the people that you socialize with, and you're in a situation where, fine, you did find 2 or 3 people that you are willing to invest a significant amount of time in, because you believe that they can help you and you believe that you can genuinely help them. Okay. Now, some tips that I would give you. First and foremost, establish a schedule. Establish a regimen at which you try to communicate with these people. Maybe once a week. If you like them a lot, maybe once a day. Maybe once a month. Maybe you have a community group that you put together or a book club. a book club that you put together to check in with these people. Maybe a beer or coffee or something, something regular. That's going to be the thing. Because once you come up with, hey, this is the archetype, and this is what that particular archetype and person needs in their life, then you need to come up with a plan of how to help them. And I think a lot of people fall short in this aspect because a lot of people don't think very far ahead. If you really want to help people, you need to make up for things that they are blind to. If they already have that skill that you have, then you're not that useful to them. The reality is you have to give them something that they do not have. If you believe that you can give that to them, then you're going to be of use to them, and they will in turn probably provide you with use too. So weekly check-ins, monthly check-ins, daily check-ins required. That's going to allow you to start forming your kind of ideology of maybe what this person requires in their life. Ask them questions like, hey, what do you want to do? What are your goals? What do you really enjoy doing? What are your aspirations? What is something that you wish you did more of? Right? And then being the type of person that's already asking those questions to yourself and coming up with systems and plans to make that a reality for you, you can then pivot and try to express things that might help them. Based on the archetype, the personality, you're going to have to express that in different ways. You're going to either get into a situation where you hit a brick wall, or you're going to get into a situation where they agree with you but are hesitant, or you're going to get into a situation where they fully agree with you and whatever you're saying makes a lot of sense to them, and that is something they want to do. Each of those require their own subtleties. And you will master these. You will get better at this over time. You just have to stay committed to the idea that your presence actually does impact people and their lives. Okay, so say you're in the first situation where you hit a brick wall and they don't agree with you at all. Don't lose faith, my friend. Don't lose faith. It is the issue of the teacher when the student is not learning. This means that perhaps you have the wrong strategy. Perhaps you are approaching them in too much of a preacher mindset. Perhaps you are approaching them as a logic bully. Perhaps you're approaching them as someone that isn't even attempting to push them in the way that they need. Perhaps they got to this situation because someone never pushed them the right way, like a coach would. Well, you need to determine what that stuff is, what they need, which type of push they need. And perhaps just because once you push the wrong way doesn't mean that you can augment your approach and push a different way. Food for thought. Very difficult. You got to think about yourself a lot. You got to think about how you socialize, how you come off. But it's possible. Second example, they're in the middle. They don't really agree with you, they don't really disagree with you, they kind of seem unmotivated. But they're like, I see where you're coming from. Okay, in this situation, I would suggest examples. I would give them examples of things that you are doing or things that people you respect are doing, and allow them to marinate in the ideas of change or progress or achievements. That way, not only are you doubling your own motivation, you are giving them examples of powerful mentalities actually changing lives. Huge examples. Very important. The third, they're fully on board, they're ready to go, baby. What you have to say to them is something they need and they know it. All right. Don't get carried away now. Just because they're on your boat, just because they have been sold to your idea, does not mean that your life is easy now. In fact, in some ways, this is now going to be your test of character. Frankly, all of this is, but in particular, when you get someone to piggyback on the idea of improving their life, or the idea of building something, and they're on board, your greatest responsibility is to keep them there. And how do you do that? Results. Results. Right? Okay, fine. They're like, yeah, I'm gonna do this thing. I'm gonna start working out. I'm gonna start caring about my career. I'm gonna start stop doing so many drugs. If you don't check in with that person, that first thing that I said, they may not get into the routine that you suggest them to get into. There's a little bit of accountability that's required with every human being, and you have to figure out how much accountability that is. Again, an archetypes thing, but that person that's completely on board, they're now your family, they're your team. You invest all of your energy and effort outside of helping yourself to help them. That goes with businesses, that goes with your community. Building things up, a level of consistency takes time and consistent effort. Consistent effort and time. Hopefully you got something out of this. And hopefully you decide that you want to become a nurturer for certain people. Cheers. Take care.